Outside, heavy rain falls against the windows, but inside, the dining room is glowing. 8-year-old Henry and his family are finishing their evening meal in a brightly lit, comfortable home. Henry feels entirely at ease. He watches his father wash the dishes and his mother clear the table, while his little sister laughs and plays with her toy bear on the living room floor. When our brains register that we are physically secure and surrounded by trusted family members, our environment feels inherently relaxing. The storm outside is not processed as a threat. It acts as background noise that actually makes the house feel even cozier. Then the environment shifts. The wind picks up, pushing the trees against the glass, and a loud boom of thunder shakes the sky. With a sharp click, the power goes out. The television dies, the refrigerator stops, and the house is plunged into absolute darkness. Henry's previous comfort vanishes in a second. His eyes go wide in the dark, his breathing quickens, and he freezes as he tries to process the abrupt change in his surroundings. His father quickly steps in to help, flicking on a small flashlight that cuts through the dark and casts a bright, localized beam across the living room. Sudden, unexpected sensory drops, like losing the lights and hearing loud, booming noises, instantly trigger our brain's threat detection systems. The feeling of safety is immediately overridden by a deep sense of vulnerability and worry. When bedtime arrives, Henry retreats to his bedroom. His father leaves the flashlight resting on the bedside table, leaving Henry isolated with only a small, fragile circle of illumination to push back the dark. In this low-light environment, the visual cues we usually rely on are stripped away. Ordinary, familiar pieces of furniture in Henry's room suddenly lose their normal shapes and textures. A specific threat emerges. A tall, menacing figure appears to be standing in the room, stretching high across the bedroom wall. Henry's physiological response suddenly takes over completely. He pulls his blanket tightly up to his chin, his hands visibly shaking as a cold rush of adrenaline hits his system. Another loud crack of thunder breaks the silence outside, tipping his anxiety into outright panic. Henry jumps out of bed and sprints down the dark hallway to find his parents. When we are alone and deprived of clear visual information, our brains attempt to protect us by assuming the worst. The imagination fills in the missing data, actively turning harmless, ambiguous shapes into terrifying monsters. Henry quickly rushes into his mother's arms. She immediately gives him a tight, reassuring hug, providing the exact physical comfort he needs to halt his immediate panic. To lower his heart rate, she gently guides him to take slow, deep breaths, helping his nervous system shift out of its fight-or-flight response so he can think clearly again. With Henry physically calm, his father initiates a logical intervention. Holding Henry's hand, the two of them walk slowly back into the bedroom to face the threat directly. This animated diagram shows exactly what Henry was looking at. A shadow is simply the absence of light. When the flashlight beam hits the blue jacket resting on the chair, the solid object blocks the light rays. The rays that pass the edges continue to the wall, projecting an enlarged, distorted silhouette that looks completely different from the source object. By investigating our fears directly with logic, facts, and the support of others, we ground ourselves in reality. This breaks the illusion and stops our imagination from tricking us. To prove this, Henry's father turns the flashlight off and on. They play a game with the light, showing Henry that the shadow only exists because of where the flashlight is placed. Understanding the mechanics of the shadow completely changes Henry's emotional state. The terrifying monster is gone, replaced by laughter as he realizes the shape is entirely harmless. Armed with this new understanding, Henry takes ownership of the flashlight. He climbs back into bed confidently, choosing to stay alone in his room as the storm outside finally begins to quiet down. Actively practicing the truth and understanding how our environment works replaces anxiety with agency. It gives us the internal courage to face our fears without needing someone else to protect us. The next morning, the storm is completely gone. Bright sunshine fills the bedroom and birds are singing outside the window. Henry wakes up feeling deeply proud. He stretches his arms, walks to the window, and pulls the curtains wide open to reveal a clear blue sky. When his little sister runs in to ask how he slept, he gives her an honest answer. He admits that he was afraid at first, but explains that he learned how to look closely at what scared him, and that made him brave. Feeling afraid in the dark is a perfectly normal human reaction, but with a little patience, the support of people who love us, and the courage to find the truth, we can overcome any shadow.